Hey Class 10 students, and welcome to The Explainer from A1 Institute. Today we are diving into a really big topic from your history books, the incredible story of Indian textiles. We're going to break it all down so you are absolutely ready for your exams.
All right, let's start with a fact that's kind of mind-blowing. Way before the Industrial Revolution and all these giant factories, Indian silk and cotton didn't just sell, they totally dominated the international market. Seriously, from Central Asia all the way to Europe, you could say the world was literally wrapped in Indian fabric.
So how did we go from global domination to almost total collapse? Well, here's the roadmap. First, we'll look at India at the very peak of its textile power. Then, we'll see how the East India Company completely changed the game. After that, we'll dig into the real human cost for the weavers themselves, and finally, see how factories in Manchester, England delivered the final blow. And don't you worry, we'll wrap it all up with a summary that's just perfect for your exams.
Okay, let's rewind the clock to a time before the British had really established political power in India. This was, without a doubt, a golden age for textiles. I want you to picture this, a buzzing, complex, and unbelievably rich trade network run almost entirely by Indian merchants.
You know what's so amazing when you look at this is just how sophisticated the whole operation was. I mean, this wasn't just a few boats here and there. We are talking about the finest cottons and silks crisscrossing entire continents, carried by Armenian and Persian merchants through tough mountain passes and across vast oceans. And the entire thing was lubricated by this network of Indian bankers and merchants who connected weavers in tiny villages to these huge port cities. It was a proper global enterprise.
But then, everything starts to change. The arrival of European companies, and especially the English East India Company, marks a massive turning point in this story. This is exactly where the power begins to shift, so you'll definitely want to pay close attention here for your exams.
And you know what? This change happened incredibly fast. Just look at the timeline. By the mid-1700s, that old Indian network is already starting to fall apart. As the East India Company gets more and more political power, it just muscles its way into having a total monopoly on trade. And just like that, the old ports begin to dry up, the local bankers who finance the whole thing go bankrupt, and a brand new colonial system takes over. This slide just lays it all out perfectly. It's out with the old ports like Surat and Hooghly, and in with the new colonial power centers, Bombay and Calcutta. It was, for all intents and purposes, a total takeover. The money, the control, the ships, everything was now in European hands. The old world was simply vanishing.
So, what did all this mean for the actual people making the cloth? I mean, how did this massive power shift affect the individual weavers on the ground? Well, the company wasn't just interested in controlling the ports, they wanted to control production itself. And, well, they came up with a new system to do just that.
And to pull this off, they introduced a brand new figure. Now, you have to remember this term for your exams, the gomasta. This was basically a paid servant appointed by the company whose job it was to supervise weavers, collect the supplies, and check the quality of the cloth. They were the agents of this new direct control.
The company's plan was honestly brilliantly simple and absolutely ruthless. You can see the steps right here. First step, get rid of all your rivals. All the local merchants, pushed out. Second step, install your own people, the gomastas, for direct supervision. And the third step, and this was the real trap, was to introduce a loan system. They'd give weavers advance payments, which sounds good, right? But what it really meant was that the weavers were now in debt to the company. They were legally bound to sell their cloth only to them at whatever price the company decided to set. Any power they had to bargain was, poof, just gone.
And you can just imagine the tension this created. See, the old merchants, they were part of the community. These new gomastas, they were total outsiders. They were known for being arrogant, and they often marched into villages with sepoys, soldiers, to intimidate the weavers and punish them for any delays at all. This new system led to constant bitter clashes in the weaving communities.
As if this system of control wasn't bad enough, the final devastating blow to India's weavers came from thousands of miles away. From the new cotton mills of Manchester, England, the Industrial Revolution had arrived.
Check this out. Even after all the chaos from the East India Company, as late as 1811, Indian textiles still made up a massive 33% of all of India's exports. So yeah, the industry was hurt, but it was still a giant. Now I want you to hold that number in your head, 33%.
Now look at this. Just 40 years later, that 33% collapses to a shocking 3%. From a third of all exports to practically nothing. It is one of the most sudden and brutal economic collapses in modern history. An entire industry, the very heart of the economy for centuries, was basically wiped out in a single generation.
So what on earth could have caused a decline this catastrophic? The answer is a devastating 1-2 punch that Indian weavers just had no way of withstanding.
So here's how it all went down. Indian weavers got hit from two sides at the exact same time. First, their biggest export market, Britain, was slammed shut. Factory owners in Manchester lobbied the British government to slap these huge taxes on Indian cloth, which priced it right out of the market. And then, those same factories started pumping out massive amounts of cheap machine-made cloth and shipping it to India. So weavers couldn't sell their stuff abroad, and now they couldn't even compete in their own local markets. They lost everything.
Okay, that was a pretty dramatic story, wasn't it? Let's boil it all down into a simple summary to really lock this in for your exams.
Just remember these 4 words: dominance, disruption, control, and collapse. First, India's dominance through its own trade networks. Second, the disruption caused by the East India Company's monopoly. Third, the direct control over weavers using the Gumasta system. And finally, the collapse of the entire industry thanks to Manchester goods. This 4-part structure is the perfect framework for any exam answer on this topic.
We really hope breaking the story down like that makes it all clear and gets you ready to ace your exams. If you want to dive even deeper with detailed notes, get some one-on-one help, or even support with admissions, just get in touch with us at A1 Institute.
And hey, if this explainer helped you out, do us a quick favor and hit that like button, share it with your friends, and definitely subscribe to the A1 Institute channel for more content just like this. All our contact info, including our phone number, is right there in the description below. And stick around, because in our next explainer, we're going to look at what happened after this collapse and how India's industries began to fight back. Thanks for watching.